Most of us have heard the phrase.
Sorry, it's not video number one. I normally have multiple videos. It's just one video. It's a documentary. Let's do this.
Drinking the Kool-Aid. As many know, the phrase is often used as a taunt that refers to people who either easily believe something they've been told, don't question ideas, or give blind obedience and gullibility. Though this phrase has been worked into our cultural vocabulary, most people don't know the gruesome background behind it, or its true meaning. What is up, Iwu crew?
Because yes, drinking the Kool-Aid is a specific phrase that was coined after the events that we're going to see happening today.
Today, we are taking an in-depth look at the horrific events of Jonestown that inspired the colloquial phrase we know so well. We will be investigating how a charismatic leader with a delusional vision for a better world convinced those who followed him to do the unthinkable. Today's discussion is haunting and includes parts that some may find disturbing. If you enjoy true crime, mysteries, and true stories, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. The 1960s and 70s are remembered as a time when cults and communes flourished. There were many reasons for this cultural phenomenon. The rapid development of technology, the Vietnam War, birth control, and more common drug use. At the time, people worried about the breakdown of society, and these
Joseph, how are you tonight? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining chat. Appreciate you being here, bud.
rapid changes left a gaping hole in the lives of many, with people yearning for something more substantial and someone to make sense of the world for them. For some, answers could be found in spirituality and the rising movements of religious freedom that were a pushback against organized religion. It was within this context that James Warren Jim Jones was born in 1931 in Crete, a small town in rural Indiana. The Great Depression was in full swing, and this hard economic period was the driving factor behind Jim Jones's rough.
I'm doing great, Joseph. Doing pretty good. It's hot, but other than that, I am doing great. Thank you so much for asking. Hey, Munin. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well.
Upbringing and the financial difficulties that led him to living in a shack without plumbing. After his parents' marriage broke down and they separated, Jones moved to Richmond, Indiana with his mother and lived in a slightly less impoverished state. He grew up with an enthusiasm for learning about different religions and an odd fascination with death. In fact, he was described by those who knew him as a really weird kid who...
Hey, Tacos, how are you tonight? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Ooh, a nice ice cold Dr. Pepper. I love putting them in the freezer and just letting it not completely frozen, but just that it has like that those little a formation of like ice right on top. Ooh, love it. Oh yeah, you enjoy that, Joseph. I am doing pretty good, Tacos. Doing pretty good. Thank you so much for asking. Tonight we're doing, like the title says, we're doing the Jim Jones. We're doing a Jim Jones documentary, People's Temple, Jonestown. It just started. It only has about like 2-3 minutes in, so yeah, you came right on time. Ooh, frosty mugs. Ooh, how about a combination of both? How about you pour the Dr. Pepper into that mug and then you put it in the freezer? and I don't even like soft drinks like that. And I would definitely love a frosty Dr. Pepper right now. That would be amazing. I love that sound. Dude, a cat's purr, man. That's it's so soothing. Especially when they like lie on your belly and they do that purr thing. Oh, it's so awesome. I love it. All right, moving on.
Would preach to other children. He reportedly befriended a Pentecostal minister when he was 10 and would attend many different churches to learn as much as he could about religion. Even as a young boy, he was opposed to the practices of dancing and drinking, which he saw as sinful behavior. He was known to read the works of Stalin, Gandhi, Marx, and Mao. There are many strange stories of Jones, some that hint at personality quirks that may have led to his later infamous reputation. One such story from the 1940s tells of a young Jones being patted on the head by a German prisoner of war who was being forced to stay in Lynn, Indiana, where Jones was living at the time. He reportedly responded with a Hitler salute and by shouting "Hail Hitler." Another story says that Jones was known to have stabbed a cat to death and would hold small funerals for animals in his backyard. If these tales are true, then Jones certainly displayed a penchant for the morbid and dark aspects of life, even from a young age. Despite these disturbing accounts, Jones excelled in school and graduated with honors from Richmond High School in 1948. Following school, he became an orderly at a hospital before going to Indiana University, Bloomington, where he eventually earned a degree in secondary education, though it took him 10 years to complete. While working at the hospital, he met an older nursing student named Marceline Baldwin, and the two were married in June 1949 and moved to Indianapolis. At around 20 years old, Jones attended Communist Party gatherings and openly opposed the U.S. government for the rampant persecution of communists in the country.
Yikes! We're already starting off on the wrong foot with this person. I mean, I guess knowledge is power, but some of the books that he was reading are, written by like dictators and stuff like that. We can start definitely seeing how his twisted mentality was slowly starting to materialize. And while we're still very, very fresh into the story and we're still learning about his background, you can already see that, there's certain things that could definitely lead this person to eventually become a cult leader. Because at the end of the day, that's one of the things that cult leaders, especially cult leaders that are able to manipulate so many people, it's that they have this incredible power to persuade with words that you wouldn't really give it much mind in other circumstances, but they are so good at the act of persuasion that they paint this world to you. First they paint this world that's so dark, but then they paint this world that can only be you can only get there through them, which is kind of ironic because if you really think about it, these cult leaders tend to play God, which makes absolutely no sense. But nonetheless, I'm going a little bit ahead of myself. But again, I've seen a lot of documentaries about Jonestown. I mean, again, it is one of the most famous cults. It's one of, if not the worst cult in terms of numbers. I don't think there's any other cult that could align itself to this one. That's how fucked up this case is. But yeah, like I said, we're seeing little hints of what's to come. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that.
He became an outspoken Marxist and reportedly said that he wanted to demonstrate his dedication to communism by infiltrating the church. Following his religious passions, Jones became a self-ordained Christian minister in 1951 to 1952. In only a year, he began creating quite the reputation as a charismatic evangelist. In a rather revolutionary stance for the time, Jones wanted to hold racially integrated services, but he was not allowed to do so by his church. In response to the continued segregation of churches and services, and influenced by his communist beliefs, Jones started his own church in 1955, first called the Wings of Deliverance Church, but later known as the People's Temple. The People's Temple was one of the very first Midwestern churches that allowed people of different races to attend, and was initially an interracial mission. The church struggled in the beginning due to the lack of financial aid that many other churches relied on to function. Jones tried a few outlandish schemes to drum up money, including reportedly going door-to-door selling live monkeys. Jones later tried faith healing, which he had seen become extremely popular in recent years and attracted many supporters to other churches. Faith healing relies on the power of prayer and laying on of hands to encourage divine intervention to create physical and spiritual healing. Jones began to claim that he had the miraculous ability to heal the ill and infirm. In a sermon, Jones recalls his ability to heal.
Now before you get mad, good Catholic friends, you saw the woman spit up her cancer and you got one, you know it. You want to get healed from it, don't you? Well, you better set and get the truth, because it's the truth that sets you free. You saw the one that came out of her cast yesterday. You saw the blind eyes that were opened. You saw the back broken that was healed. You saw the one that was crippled up with arthritis in an accident that came running down. You saw all those. You saw the blinded eyes open. If you want to get that, honey, you better sit on your fanny and listen to what I got to say.
Man has a creepy voice, and again, you know, he's at this point he's already formed the church. We already know people. It's called People's Temple. Yeah, that's the beginnings of it. Started off kind of in the Midwest. Unfortunately, during a time that there was still segregation going on, and you know there was still that clear division, even when praising, you know, to you know, God, a deity. There was still that segregation. You know, there was a, you know, one church for one and one church for the other. And while, you know, on the surface of it, you would think like, oh, you know, that's such a great idea. You know, the action in itself was I guess pretty good, because we wanted to make a community that was interracial. But when we go further into it, then, you know, it's he used it as a double-edged sword, basically. And we'll further on we'll understand why. This is an unfortunate reality. You know, there's with that power of persuasion and being able to use words in a way that could basically manipulate people. You know, while Jonestown is the biggest cult, or was in terms of what eventually happened, there have been many other cults. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily have to be religious. There have been many cults about different, you know, different things. You know, Charles Manson had a cult, basically. He was a cult leader. There's a whole slew of other cults that have existed as well, you know, especially here in California. If there's one thing that California, you know, has been known for doing, it's being the ground place for cults to blossom. So yeah, the state has had its fair share of them, and I actually know people that have been raised in like really, you know, in forests, countryside cults that are separated from cities and towns. Like I'm not gonna say it's like separated from like civilization, but in a general sense, they are pretty in deep to woods or the country. So it is still pretty prevalent. And again, there's some that are well known, but there are plenty of cults out there that we have absolutely no idea what they do or how they operate. So it's crazy. It's crazy. I hope they explain maybe a little bit why people tend to fall into cults. If not, I will definitely make an episode dedicated to that, because it's very interesting to see the psychology behind it. I don't know when that will be, but I definitely think that's a great idea, because there's a lot. There's so much from the cult leader part, but there's also much from the person receiving it, that it's pretty interesting how they end up in that situation. You basically they just went through a background of Jim Jones, kind of explaining he went to college. At this point, he's already formed the People's Temple, the People's Church, so he's already like their cult leader, but it's not necessarily established as one yet. Hey Mushroom, how are you tonight? Hope you're doing great. Well, today's True Crime and Murder Mystery Wednesday, so I'm leaning towards you already knowing about this, and this will be more of a form of entertainment for you. But we're doing Jim Jones and the People's Temple tonight, that really famous cult. So yeah, if anything, we'll be learning about that specific cult tonight and who this sicko Jim Jones is. I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Yeah, it's really interesting, Okami, to see how, again, it's just how someone gets to that point, the state of vulnerability that you have to fall into a cult like that, because some are pretty beneficial to you and they help you a lot, but some cults are like straight up like they're like cults. And again, like how someone gets into that. Like, one thing is being born into it, but another thing is like being introduced to it. The psychology behind that. I think that is pretty interesting. That is true. That is true, Mushroom. You don't know what you don't know. But if you don't know, now you will perhaps know. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. Moving on.
If you don't like the truth, you never will get these healings.
He also claims the ability to resurrect people from the dead, both literally and figuratively.
Sure, we have no dying here. Sure, we've had 209 people resurrected from the dead that have been carried in here with bowel movement, even cake on their legs. We've had their eyes set and they've been blue. Sure, we can do that. But I tell you, that's not what's most wonderful. I'm looking over faces that were once dead in their trespasses of the old religions. They were dead under the old doctrines of fear, dead under the old concepts of the furniture of heaven and the temperature of hell. They were dead, and now their mental concepts, their mind has been resurrected. That's the greatest resurrection of all. Their mind has been liberated. Their mind has been set free. They now think. They now know the truth, and the truth.
When he had a local
It's that power of persuasion that I talked about before, see? And you could tell in his tone of voice, the way that whole delivery, it's, yeah. He riles up the church, dude, and the church is just like, yeah. And if they would just like kind of step back and, kind of analyze what this person is saying, is like, yo, my man, you resurrected people from the dead?